I'd like to start today talking a little bit about pottery. Sure, why not? Why not? One of the things that potters have to do, and it's kind of a pain in the butt, nobody really enjoys it, is they have to wedge clay. So clay fresh from the factory out of the package is pretty usable, but as soon as it's set around for a little bit or you've reclaimed it, you got to wedge it. And wedging means you're going to imagine kneading dough, like if you're making bread or something. So wedging clay is about pushing the clay through itself and you're mixing it on the table. So you're not putting it in a blender and stirring it up, which would cause some interesting problems. You're actually taking formable clay and using your hands and working it into itself so that it's completely homogeneous. So we want the clay to be the same all the way through. We want it to have the same amount of moisture in every ball that you throw or every form that you build. We want to make sure that the consistency is really good. There's no air pockets, no wet spots, no dry spots, no chunks, right? So wedging the clay is getting the clay ready to use. And it's properly wedged, you could do just about anything you want with it. So what wedging doesn't do, however, is remove impurities. If you've got things that don't belong in the clay, it's going to mess up your firing. It's going to burn weird. If there's a little, if there's a rock hiding in there somewhere, or a piece of glaze, or a shard of something from another piece of pottery, all sorts of things you can pick up when you're wedging clay and handling clay around the studio that is an impurity, which might burn off in the kiln and not give you any problems, or it might burn off and leave you a gaping hole or cause a failure. Um, Wedging is important, but it doesn't fix everything. So, how do you get rid of impurities? Now, how am I going to turn this into a business lesson? Well, to find that out, you're going to have to keep listening.
Welcome to your weekly dose of uncommon sense, helpful insights, and tough love. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. The Intentional Success Podcast comes to you through the generous support of Mertz Crew.
Mertz Crew helps top AV companies book quality AV freelancers. Your choice, your rates. We handle contracts, insurance, and payments. You save time, cost, and reduce risk. Start today at mertzcrew.com.
Now on to the show.
So today's conversation is about churn. What is churn? Churning butter? No, churn is about turnover. It's about change. And the reason we say churning butter is that we're constantly moving the butter through the churn to help it set up, help it get the consistency that you want, and make sure that all the impurities can be separated. When we're working with clay, the impurities don't go away just because you churned it, or as we potters say, wedged it. So what does this have to do with business? Well, if I'm wedging clay, I can't get rid of the impurities. When you're creating churn in your business, if you don't get rid of the non-ideal customers, you're leaving those impurities in your revenue. You can't blend bad customers in with good customers and the bad customers become better. No, bad customers are always bad customers, whatever a bad customer is to you. Adding more good customers doesn't make the bad customers less of a problem. In fact, matter of fact, it often makes it a bigger problem. So I talked about wedging clay because it's a very important step in making sure that you are working with the right material. In business and sales, our material are our customers. So many people are proud of their customer retention, and in most cases, they absolutely should be. But what customers are you retaining? Are you retaining revenue, or are you retaining strategically valuable customers? And those are not those can be very mutually exclusive, right? You can have revenue that is horrible business, and you can have great business, which is bad revenue. We've got to make sure that we're paying attention to what this all is. So stagnant retention will lead to breaks in your system. It will cause stress in your system. if you're retaining customers for the sake of retaining them, rather than doing what the alternative is improving upon it. So by wedging clay, I can improve upon the condition of the clay, but I can't remove the impurities. However, it may make it possible for me to see where the impurities are, and maybe I can help it when it comes to customers. What are the impurities you're looking for? You know, your ideal customers do not have overly developed expectations of over delivery, right? Good customers don't expect you to go above and beyond every single time to give you more than they paid for, more than they asked for. Um, if you have stagnant customers, high retention customers who are not good customers, you'll find that your margin with them is shrinking over time. And they are very resistant to price changes. So think of those three things. Those are some indicators that you might need to wedge your customers a little bit. So poor customers in your customer mix is a way of subsidizing revenue so that you feel like you're growing. So if I get new revenue and I'm keeping the old revenue, I'm growing, and growth is good, right? Yes, it is. Growth can be great, but we have to have the right growth. So when I talk about growth, I talk about, we want to grow our businesses, we want to have fun, and we want to make money. But growth doesn't have to mean piling revenue on. Growth can mean improving the revenue that you have. So improving revenue, you first have to improve what you have now. Now, if you have a plan to grow, good for you. Let's get you some more business. Let's get more ideal customers, more of the type of projects that you want to do, the ones that you'll be successful at and your customers will appreciate you for. Awesome, let's do that. But you also have to create capacity, and the most expensive capacity you have is dealing with non-ideal customers. So rather than saying, hey, we're going to win this new business and it's going to add 10% revenue for us this coming year, why don't you look at it this way? We have this new customer. We have a guaranteed increase of 10% of our business. However, if we were to shed some of our non-ideal business, say the equivalent number, our net profit will actually increase, our quality of life will be better, and we'll be in a better position and have more capacity to attract another better customer. So what I'm saying is, if you want to grow your business, first get rid of all the customers you shouldn't have in the first place, or at the very least, every time you bring in a new customer or a new line of business where you can cover your overhead and not have to increase your overhead, find business that you can shed and then repeat the process. Keep adding new revenue, keep shedding poor revenue. Now, so what I'm saying is that before you attempt to grow, start with cycling out the non-ideal customers that you have and replacing them with ideal ones. Now, you picture your funnel. You've got good business coming into your funnel, but we need the bad business to go out. So the bad business doesn't go down through the funnel. We finish a show and piss somebody off and then we end our relationship. You want the bad business to go out at the opportunity stage. And every time you're dealing with a customer, treat them as an opportunity, okay, so that you can reevaluate what the relationship is, and you're always in a position to reset the terms of your relationship. So who would I do this with? What are some of the types of folks that I might look at as potential, need to get these folks out of my funnel? As soon as I get some new business, I can start shedding these. You know who they are. First of all, they're a pain in the ass, or they're extremely well-intentioned, but they're a pain in the ass. Pain in the ass customers make bad faith promises. Okay, that doesn't mean they're bad people. They just can't live up to their promises. They can't make payments on time. They disrespect deadlines. They shirk responsibilities and push it back on you. Bad customers also are blame shifters. If they're trying to, get out from under the blame and push the blame on you all the time without taking some ownership of the relationship, Sometimes it is your fault, but a lot of times it isn't. Yeah, those are maybe the folks that we want to look at and say, can we change our relationship or do we need to move on? Do you have people who dangle future work in front of you in order to get concessions for the job that's, at hand right now? Man, I mean, that is really disingenuous, because the fact of the matter is, if they need you to do that now, they're going to need you to do it next time. So promising something making a promise they can't keep about future business is a little unfair, just a little bit dishonest. Maybe they shouldn't be making the cut. You have to decide. And then some folks are just too demanding, right? They make an emergency out of everything. They want updates instantaneously. They want you to be available at 10 o'clock on a Friday night to have a long conversation about things they were thinking about before they went to bed. You decide what's not the right customer for you, but those people, those customers are why you need new customers. So as you're working on that new business, don't focus on the growth in terms of just increasing your revenue. Focus on the growth of improving the quality of your revenue, the quality of your customers. Get that churn you need. And while retention is fantastic, let's make sure we're retaining the best possible customers that we can, so that we have more bandwidth, more time, more resources to get out there and attract and develop the ideal customers that, frankly, you deserve. So that's my thoughts for the day. Thanks for listening. Let me know how it's working for you.
If you want to find out more about today's episode, go to trstimpson.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes, related links, and tons of other valuable resources. If you haven't already subscribed to the Intentional Success Podcast, please do so, and I'd greatly appreciate if you would rate and review the show. Also, if you think you might be a good fit to work together or want more information about the Stimson Group, I'd love to hear from you. Visit trstimpson.com for more information.